Welcome back to Storytime with Wolf. I am your host, Wolf with Attitude, and this edition of Storytime is about the mob's history in the United States. Side note, before chapter. In this chapter, we will look into how it all began, the birth, the introduction to the chapter. The mob throughout the 20th century had influence in every section that they could find, to many existence of both city and national influence, including the construction of New York City public schools. Before the mob influence in construction, the buildings were in poor condition and used shoddy materials from the city. Shoddy material was worrying parents that their children would be endangered. The city had no choice to look into mob-influenced unions, and they tripled the cost to the city through building. They also made a profit, and safer construction was placed for the school buildings, including windows and plumbing. Secret supporters had connection to mob influence for building codes to pass safety. Officials who originally responsible for the construction were fired. I will return to the side note at the end of Chapter 1. Chapter 1. The beginning. A fiery saint. Quote, "If I betray my friends and family, I and my soul will burn in hell. Like this saint of paper." A very young man, Tony Asatoro, had to repeat this oath while holding this picture in his hand, burned in flames, surrounded by stone-carved face men. When the ceremony ended, they all toasted him, with a kiss on the cheek, from each of the men, with a stern shake of hands after. A congratulations. For Asatoro, in his mind, it was the biggest honor in his life. The ceremony was in his soul, and filled his heart with pride. His life ambition was complete. He became a member of a secret code that was secluded. Asatoro became a made man in the American Mafia. Prior to his ceremony, he spent years of service as an enforcer and a major earner. His patience soon paid off for him. The day of ceremony, early in the afternoon, he was told this would be a big moment in his life. Even though he was yet sworn, he had orders to meet with a Joe Abate, a high figure. The two rarely met face to face. Abate, already a capo, meaning captain of a borgata. Borgata, a slang term for family in the mob underworld, based in a Sicilian word for a close community, supervised all activities in New Jersey for the Lucchese crime family. That afternoon, Joe Abate was waiting for Tony Asatoro at the New York bus terminal in the Port Authority in Midtown Manhattan. As a capo, or captain, Abate was the figurehead of over 100 gangsters who illegally brought in millions of dollars each year for themselves. He would always give a fair cut to his administration, the Lucchese syndicate family, across the Hudson River into New York. Abate was already in his 70s. In front of law enforcement, he looked like a basic businessman, a tall, lean-shaped man. This was in June 1976. There was no conversation between Asatoro and Abate. Tony Asatoro was at least 30 years younger than Joe Abate. Asatoro was 5 feet 8 inches and a built man, over 200 pounds. Being new to Joe Abate, Asatoro was not even allowed to have small talk with the older capo. Being he was a New Jersey mafiosi, Tony Asatoro was still in a satellite part of the Lucchese family. Joe Abate already had a fierce presence reputation. Abate already had a veteran reputation, going all the way back as a gunslinger for Al Capone in Chicago. Capone was the most noticed gangster across the country in the 1920s. Abate made it known to Tony Asatoro to speak only when spoken to, and to command assignment without hesitating. Nearby the bus terminal in Manhattan, Abate brought the younger man into a building in New York's Garment District. In Midtown, they both met up with a man by the name of Indemo, who handled soldier work for the Lucchese, such as labor and racketeering, loan sharks, in the Garment District. From there, the three men were in the car for a 30-minute drive, pulling over into a very simple-looking house. Being that Asatoro was unfamiliar with the New York City area, Tony thought he was in the Bronx, the borough, north of Manhattan. Inside the living room of this small house, several men, unknown to the young Asatoro, were waiting. One of them introduced himself as Tony Corallo. Aseturo understood in the inner workings of the mafia. This unsmiling, short-built man named Corallo, a man in his 60s, was recognized. He was also known in the underworld as Tony Ducks. Aseturo also understood who Tony Ducks was. Antonio Corallo, whose underworld nickname was Tony Ducks, who got the nickname for able to duck from law enforcement arrests. Tony Ducks was also the boss, or godfather of the entire Lucchese family. Surrounding him was the small group of men inside this living room. They were all there for one reason: the kind of setting used to turn Aseturo from a basic soldier into a full-fledged made man, a member of a borgata. The books were closed for 20 years. For all 5 families as of 1976, for any new made man membership into any of the borgata, there was a secret in the Lucchese that a position opened up. Most likely a retired before him. Aseturo always dreamed of becoming a made guy. Someone on the inside, not just a soldier. Aseturo had agonized over his future, while always a proud soldier. He wanted in on the earning ability of the family to help enrich himself. The mafia had a code in passing an entry exam. This may be, for example, to participate into a violent crime, even as far as murder, or to be a major earner for the family. Tony Aseturo was confident enough. He passed the entry exam worthy of the title in both violence and earning. He heard rumors about getting mates from some of his elders. He understood the ancient rules of loyalty, sworn by a gun, a knife, a picture of a saint, validating it all by a cut on the trigger finger. The cut was done by a knife or a needle, well enough to draw blood. Tony Ducks, Corallo, approached the young Aseturo and said to him, "Let's get started," and bluntly told Aseturo that he was the boss of this family. Tony Aseturo was handed a picture of a saint in a small piece of paper. Corallo told the soldier to burn it with a match and to repeat every word. Corallo said to him, "The oath. If I betray my friends and family, I and my soul will burn in hell like this saint." With a swell chest of pride, Aseturo repeated the oath. Many years later, he said he was bursting with honor. It was the best moment of his life. He felt at that moment, he wasn't just your average man or soldier. He was in a secret society, the dream since childhood. On his way back to New Jersey, Aseturo, he found out the sudden need to be in the Lucchese family by sworn, with great honor by other made men. In the family, they felt that Aseturo was the perfect pick as a made man. Before his swear-in, he already understood the rules. He was already ahead of himself in understanding the code of conduct, more than anyone else. Tony Corallo saw that in the younger Aseturo, he knew he was suited for the life. I am closing out this episode of Storytime with Wolf. As we look into Chapter 1, there is more grounds to cover on the chapter. There will be more history of the Mafia in America. I am your host, Wolf with Attitude, and you have been watching Storytime with Wolf. Until the next time, as always, thank you, and peace out.
My house, my rule. Welcome to hell.